Back to another ClubPF Masterclass. We have two amazing people with us. We have Erin and we have Steve. I'll let them introduce themselves in a second. Most of you are probably listening on demand for this. So Steve and Erin are both going to tell you where you can find them when I turn it over to them. But if you are joining live or if you do have any questions, throw them in the chat. Happy to answer them. Happy to kind of make this conversational, whatever you guys need. And with that, I will throw it over to you both.
Thanks, Nick. It's great to be here. My name is Steve Hasse. I'm the Steve of the Erin and Steve.
And I'm Erin Aquin. I'm the Erin of the Erin and Steve. We are not only business partners, we are actually parents and a married couple.
You guessed it. You guessed it. It's the family business, folks. It's the family business. Today we're going to talk about lighting your lanterns, achieving big things, and doing it in a way that not only prevents burnout, but actually expresses more of who you are in the world. Here at the Club PF, people first, enabling your go-to-market prowess, right? Growing as a leader. It's not just about achieving those metrics. Ultimately, you want to do something that you are proud of, that has you feeling more empowered, like more of yourself, like you're on the right damn track with your life. And that is what we're going to talk about today. Not just preventing burnout, but really expressing who you are as you build your business, grow your team, all that good stuff.
And we are both coaches, business coaches, personal coaches, who know burnout pretty well. My claim to fame burnout story is I was a yoga teacher and an acupuncturist. And I will tell you that it's a very special thing to be able to burn out when you are literally doing things in your business and in your work to make other people's lives better. I was like the person promoting all of the wellness, all of the meditation, the eating well, the taking rest.
Getting acupuncture.
And this was about 10 years ago. And I was also working 6 days a week, skipping meals regularly, waking up at 5:30 in the morning to go and teach a yoga class, finishing my day sometimes at 9 or 10 at night, never really knowing what day of the week it was. And as an entrepreneur running these two businesses, I had my most successful year to date at that point. And then I got a mystery illness that over 9 months progressed around my body. I had swelling of every small joint in my body. It caused me to have to shut down my businesses that I had worked for over a decade to build and do nothing for 9 months.
It was rough. It was rough. Watching her walk down the stairs was it was scary. It was sad. It was scary. And we were newly engaged at the time to add all of this. We were still long distance. Erin was in Hamilton, Ontario. I was in the Boston area where I had met Mark Killens, ClubPF co-founder, earlier. So I was in Boston, Erin was in Hamilton, and just seeing her go through this was it was terrifying. And also like I felt like I couldn't do anything to help, right? I was just kind of on the outside of all this. And it was put everything into question. Like, would the relationship continue? What are we supposed to do here? What if she doesn't get better? It was really scary.
From that, I did get better. I did get better. We now have 2 children. We've been happily married now for almost 10 years. But when I eventually came into coaching and rebuilding some aspects of my business, I made a promise to myself and to our family that I was going to do this differently. And I realized that you can be a yoga teacher and a workaholic. And so what we're going to share with you all today is a new approach on how to achieve your goals without winding up where I was, or maybe where some of you, I'm sure everybody here has some version of a burnout story or some kind of a close call. And we are here to help give you some tools and ideas today to make sure that none of us ever get to that place where we have to give up something that we spent time, energy, and our vision to build.
Yeah. So just before we get into the heart of things here, I'd like you to reflect for a second on where things are feeling kind of thin in your life. Maybe it's emotional. Maybe you feel a lot of resentment or overwhelm. Maybe you actually are on the verge of burnout. Maybe you recognize like, oh yeah, it's happening. Most people aren't like they're deep in the heart of it. Like you probably wouldn't be listening in on a webinar like this if you were deep in the heart of it. But many people have some of those kind of early warning signs, if you will, where things feel thin. You might snap at your family quicker than you'd like to, or you feel just depleted or drained. You might be dreading the week ahead. Any of those things can be signs that your inner flame is not as bright as it could be. The metaphor that we're going to use, and we have an amazing slide for you on the next slide. I'm just going to tease this incredible slide. Has to do with fire. It is your inner flame, and that's what you use to light your next lantern, your goal in the world. And so before we go there, just reflect for a moment. Scale of 1 to 10, how bright is that inner flame? Do you feel on fire with your work, with your life, with your relationships, with your purpose? If you said 10, kudos to you. Most people would not, even if it was a 10, most people wouldn't give themselves a 10. A lot of people are somewhere in the middle. Some people are down low, and some of it will depend on how you see yourself, how you relate to yourself, where you want to be, like where your expectations are. But just maybe write down the number or keep in mind where you see yourself on that spectrum. And hopefully by the end of our time together, you will have not only some ideas for how to shift that number towards the higher points, but even some experiences and a sense of how quickly at hand, like how immediate your ability to move that inner sense of the brightness of your flame can be.
One of our big values of Superabound, of our business and our life, is simply no drama. And I think what happens sometimes is when we're talking about doing something that may be a little bit against the grain, like how do I achieve a goal without burning out? Sometimes it's really easy to say, okay, it's going to be very complicated. I have to add 20 new things to my schedule. I have to change all of these other habits. I have to rework my day and be very strict and complicated with myself. One of the things that we hope to give you all today is that, as you said, Steve, there's those things that are going to support you well are on hand. So one of the very first things that we can do is change the vocabulary. The word goal may be a word that you love.
Some people dig it. Can't get
really
enough.
love goals. It's like, oh, goals. It's like a victory of a sports event. Like, yay.
Yep.
Clearly, I don't know anything about goals. For a lot of people, though, they get a little twitchy with the word goals. They get into a space of performance.
They feel judged.
Judgment. They feel like their worth is so inherently tied to achieving those goals. So one of the first things that we are going to do today is we're going to throw that word out. We're going to throw it out and we're going to introduce you to the concept that we like to use instead is lanterns. So if you imagine we have a book coming out called Superabound, and the imagery that we're using is imagine you are going to hike a mountain at night. I didn't know this is actually a thing, but night hikes are a thing. If you want to get to the summit of a place, one of my clients went to Kilimanjaro recently, they had to do that summit hike at nighttime. Mm-hmm. If you were to do that, I want you to imagine that on your way there are these vessels these lanterns that are sitting in the darkness, waiting for you to bring your torch down and light them up?
So that's the first thing we want to share is the opportunity to switch out the word goal, which is kind of values agnostic and are often chosen without a whole lot of reflection. Like, why does this goal matter to me? Why am I going to spend a lot of time, energy, money, blood, sweat, and tears on this achievement? And let it become a process of discovery for you. One way of thinking about lanterns is they're goals with soul. This practice of self-reflection as it relates to your work finds itself in another one of our values as a company, and that's business is a spiritual practice. And so the idea that you can be doing your work in the world, you know, in the secular, whatever, just make a buck world, but it can actually express something deeper about who you are, what you care about, how you want to work, how you want to treat other people, is one of the like closest at hand ways to grow that fire, grow that, you know, inner flame.
In order to light those lanterns and grow that fire, you have to protect your own inner flame. So you see our person at the bottom carrying their torch. That has to be strong. And that is going to be really what we focus our attention on today. But as you're going up, ideally, those lanterns that you're choosing to walk towards are actually meaningful to you and connect in some way with your big vision. So if you're a business owner, one of your lanterns is definitely going to be something to do with your revenue. Hitting that $1 million milestone, really important lantern. But connected with that may be the way in which you want to do that. Do you want to hit that revenue target and have energy and have people around you who want to celebrate with you? Or are you willing to push yourself the way I was pushing myself years and years ago and find that you've now jeopardized some aspect of your health or maybe some aspect of your relationship? Anyone who has children will know that a good tip to keep in mind is when you start telling your kids, I'm just 10 more minutes. I'll be finished my work in 10 more minutes. When your children start to set alarms for you and say, it's been 10 minutes, which my children do, our children definitely do, you know that you're starting to maybe waver into territory where you're juggling things perhaps in a more precarious way.
Yeah. This material is based on our upcoming book. It's coming out in July. It's our first book together. It's Erin's fourth book. It's very prolific. My first, and it's called Superabound: Live the Life the Universe is Dreaming for You. And uh, one of the principles that we share there is often people put on the blinders of doom. The blinders of doom. And I don't know if the name sums it up enough for you, but it's basically where you focus on your goal to the exclusion of all else. You're like, this is the thing that matters. Hitting that revenue milestone, you know, achieving this next milestone with my team. That's what I'm going to put all my time and energy into. And you know, the rest be damned. Family, friends, well-being, all the rest it'll all follow from there. But just as Erin's story demonstrates, as well as so many others that I'm sure you've heard, and if you haven't, you will. The blinders of doom lead to very unhappy results. You may hit that number, but then, you know, as we like to say, what good is $1 million in your bank account if you are broken and alone when you arrive? The things that matter are the things that matter. And that's part of the shift to seeing these as lanterns rather than as lifeless goals.
Okay, so we're telling all these like really beautiful things. You're like, yes, sure, lanterns, got it. Okay, but how? How do we actually go light that next lantern without burning out? Because anyone who has a business or is a leader already knows this, but there's a lot of challenge. There's a lot of things you have to learn. I have been, when we started this business, our coaching practice, I had already been an entrepreneur for 15 years, 16 years. The learning curve of this business, of what we had to create, the things I had to do, the spiritual practice, you get to see all of your fear, all of your stagnation, all the ways in which you might avoid the hard things or the tough things when you are running a business, when you're doing sales calls, when you are trying to craft your marketing message.
Trying to motivate your team, all the fear, self-doubt.
It all comes up.
Yeah.
It's a cruel teacher at times. So, of course, if the way that you have been taught to work, the way I was taught to work, was to do as much as possible, as fast as possible, to hustle, to crush, to crush those goals, that there is some unlearning in order to take care of ourselves while still putting attention on the lanterns that are actually important to you. And Steve seeded the idea with us of the inner fire. We're going to actually talk about the fire triangle because it fits perfectly.
I was about to do a Beavis and Butthead impression, but I will not. But I really want to. I won't do it. Okay, anyway, this is the fire triangle. We have heat, fuel, and oxygen. If you've ever studied firefighting, I used to be in the Navy as a trumpet player in the Navy band, but even as a trumpet player, I still had to go to boot camp. And you learn about fighting fires because if you're on a ship, you have to put out all the fires yourself.
Terrifying.
Right? So you learn about the fire triangle, and that is all three of these things are needed to create a fire, and without any one of them, the fire will go out. So you put water on a fire to reduce its heat. You smother a fire to reduce its oxygen. You don't, and you dig those trenches, right? You kind of dig those fire line trenches to make sure it doesn't have any more things to burn, right? There's no more fuel. So those are some of the firefighting techniques. But when you have all three, you have a blazing flame. It is guaranteed. It's just the chemistry of it. And so the same thing works really well as a metaphor for your own inner flame. We're going to go through these one at a time, starting with, I was going to say the most important one. You need all three, but I think the one that kind of leads the way is the heat. It's the visionary practice. And in the framework that we teach, everything begins with vision because that is your source of free energy. That is how you can tap into the strength to continue when everyone's saying no, when things seem impossible, when the challenges are too great. Your ability to believe and to see a possible future is what will distinguish you as a leader and as a doer and as someone who makes change in the world, which is what business is all about. You get the results that you intend. That comes from your vision. And what's different between just like having a general vision and having a visionary practice is how you take that vision down from the mountaintop and actually put it into the world. Erin, do you want to give a quick?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's really well said. I think with a visionary practice, it's also becoming a ambassador of your vision in the world. So one of the things that may be different from the way other people teach this is we think about vision as being something that's so big that it might not actually ever be realized in your lifetime. So we get a little spiritual on that, but it is something that has to have so much devotion. And people sometimes get confused about that. They're like, but you just said don't put on these blinders of doom. Vision should be all encompassing. It is not just about your business. It is not just about the professional legacy you want to leave behind. It is encompassing and holding everything in your life that's important to you so that it can all come along.
Mm-hmm. So the visionary practice, and we actually have a whole webinar on creating your own tending triad in this way. It's part of the free bonuses that we have for our book pre-order, which we'll share at the end of the session here. But if you were to just tap into a possibility for a visionary practice today, it would be the place where your belief of what is to come, you kind of fast forward to all possible universes and you go to the one, you kind of send yourself to the one where you have achieved this next milestone that you want to reach. You've achieved your whole vision. And maybe we even just go like to the next lantern. You go there and just feel it out. What does it feel like to be in that place where not your dreams have come true, but like where you've lit that next lantern, where you are expressing more of yourself, more of your vision, where your team has won, where the reason you're here is more present in the world.
And while you're feeling it out, the thing that makes this a practice is you ask that part of yourself, what needs to be done today to get me one step closer? It's a practice. It's not just like a nice thought exercise where you say, that's going to be so nice when I get there, and I have no idea where that is. It's saying like, what does that future version of me need from today me? And that is your visionary practice, is like having that conversation and then doing. If it's not something you can put on your calendar, it's not technically a visionary practice. The next piece of the triangle, this is the one that is very close at hand. I guarantee you might think, oh, I'm so bad at taking care of myself. I really, prioritize myself last. I guarantee you're already doing some of these beautifully. The next piece is sustaining rituals. And this is the fuel. This is the things we need to burn. And that's sleep. That's how you're nourishing yourself with food, with relationships. It is the basics. It's often the free stuff.
Yeah. Sleep,
exercise.
Sleep is free. Moving your body is free. But these are the things that in pursuit of,
crushing it, squish it. Don't squish it. Don't smash your goal.
in pursuit of those, it's often the things that we put, first on the get rid of. Like, look, I don't need to stop for lunch. I don't need to eat healthy stuff. I don't need to take time out to exercise. I don't need to, get good quality sleep. I can answer emails right up until the moment that I, need to just pass out from exhaustion.
The laptop in my lap.
Yeah, laptop in my bed kind of thing. That's in many ways the picture of success that our culture holds up. And to be kind of countercultural and actually create your own tending triad, it requires autonomy and your own creativity for how do you start to shift in the direction of prioritizing your sleep, prioritizing your relationships, prioritizing your mental well-being, even if it's like journaling about things that stress you out, working with a coach. We are coaches, but we also have coaches. Like these are all things that we invest in order to not just walk our talk, but actually create more heat, create more energy. In this case, give more fuel for the fires that we have for our business. Yeah.
And this is all the stuff you quote unquote should do. When I burnt out, I literally told people the secret recipe to having an amazing life. And I figured out that knowing something intellectually is very different than actually practicing it.
So let's just take a moment as you're listening and choose one thing from what we mentioned, or even something that comes to mind that's outside of that you want to take from something that's for granted and turn it into a ritual, right? We call these sustaining rituals on purpose. That choice of language is such that rather than saying, well, yeah, I eat whatever's there, or I eat when I can, or I sleep when, I sleep when the baby lets me, or any of those things, you say, how can I actually turn this into something very conscious, something very deliberate, and something that actually ties into what it is that I want to create with my business and with my life.
Just pick one. Pick one and be with that one. Experiment with that one for as long as it takes. For kind of context on this, sleep was mine. I had terrible sleep patterns, and then we had kids, so sleep was something I knew I could totally function without. But when our children got to an age where we could sort of rely on our sleep a little bit more, I spent a good 2 years working my way to being able to actually be in bed for 8 hours, sometimes sleeping for quite a majority of that. And I still have insomnia sometimes. We still have middle of the night wake ups, but I did not try to stack on, okay, not only am I going to sleep and be in bed for 8 hours, but I'm also going to work out 2 hours a day, and I'm going to journal, and then I'm going to meditate for another hour before bed, and have not just one coach, but 5 coaches. Like, you don't need to stack it up. It just needs to be the one thing that would nourish you and sustain you, and that you can slowly expand into. So that is sustaining rituals. So important. We all know exactly what we need to do. Just pick one thing and do it for a month. See how it goes.
One thing that's really fun with this is what we call smart accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Have an accountability buddy. Maybe here at Club PF, we have our own community as well, where we invite business owners to share what they're up to and be accountable to the community, not as some kind of weird, punishment or self-scolding, but like as a way to enhance their own fire, right? As a way to grow their own inner fire.
The final piece of the triangle. So we talked about heat, which is your visionary practice, your fuel, which is your sustaining ritual. This is like how you get the energy in, how you keep it going, keep it building. The last piece, I think, is the most underrated, and yet it is the thing that will stop you from leaking energy. Because I know plenty of people who are visionary. They are so inspired. They are so motivated, and they're pretty good with their sustaining rituals. They're really taking care of themselves. And where it all falls apart is the oxygen.
Smothered.
They're
no space.
smothered. And we call this personal filter. You might know this in your life as having good boundaries, but the personal filter is basically the screen between you and what you let in to your life energetically, emotionally, physically, spiritually. It is noticing when you're spending time maybe with people in your life who don't hold the same values as you, or worse, like tear them down within you. If you're an entrepreneur, I'm going to speak to those of you who are really actively trying to build something that hasn't been proven out in the world yet. The worst thing for your inner morale is someone saying, well, that will never work. Are you sure you really want to do this? Didn't you try that already? Are you making any money with that yet? It is so hard to keep and hold that belief in your big vision when you have people actively, not lovingly, not like people just checking to make sure you're doing well and what do you need and how can I support you? But you have people who are like, well, that's a silly thing to do. I did have people in my life who said, you should not become a coach. I actually work with a client now who was a coaching client who, when I gave up my acupuncture practice and my yoga space, said, I don't know, being a coach sounds really risky. I don't know if you should switch into that business. And now she's my client and she eats her hat every time we work together. But at the time, had I had 100 people saying that to me, I don't know that I would have been able to hold that big vision for what we've created. That's been really successful. So how are you, and this isn't just about people. This can also be like, are you scrolling social media that makes you feel terrible instead of putting in time like watching a class here? I hear there's a lot of content inside Club PF for you. Something that would build you up, that would sustain you, that would help you focus on your vision. Are you giving away your attention and your energy to things that drain you? You might need to build up that filter.
And so I think that would be the first place to start when considering how do you build the filter, is asking, where do you feel smothered? Where do you feel like you don't have a choice and that it's not supportive to you? With a lot of people, it's in relationships. Maybe there's someone that, or even a group that you feel beholden to, like you just have to say yes to the invites, or you have to let them over whenever they knock, or whatever it is. A lot of people feel stuck with relationships. And so this is an invitation to, first of all, just identify that, right? The starting point for all of this when you create your tending triad is where are you starting? It's awareness. And so if you know there's a certain person that just does not respect your boundaries, or you just feel afraid to even mention what you would like, you're not willing to make requests, much less actually follow through on any consequences to someone stepping over those lines, that's a good place to start. You can't make a change if you don't know what's the problem. And a lot of people just feel that sense of being stuck, feel that sense of resentment, feel that sense of annoyance. Like, God, I hope they don't, whatever, call me, look at me, barge in, anything. But they will, right?
Text me. They hope they don't text me.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
Slack me.
And so starting from that place, like, okay, this is a presence that needs to be filtered out. We're not saying you have to cut off any relationships, but sometimes relationships should end, right? Sometimes they don't actually feed your vision. They don't give you the oxygen that your heart and soul need.
And sometimes it's not about cutting the relationship off. It's more about defining what borders and boundaries you're willing to accept. It might be having a conversation that's a little uncomfortable in order to say, I'm not coming over every Sunday for dinner because it doesn't fit in with what I need on Monday. We just talk, we just gossip. We just doesn't feel good anymore. We need to do something different. So hard conversations, sometimes it's definitely oxygen, and the personal filter can be the trickiest one. Definitely get support for yourself if it is kind of a relationship-based filter that you maybe need to build. And if it's not, sometimes it's the way you talk to yourself.
Totally. A personal filter can be your own self-talk.
I hear people say a lot of very mean things to themselves.
We make our kids do 10 push-ups when they say bad things about themselves. I'm so stupid. 10 push-ups.
10 push-ups. 10 push-ups. We need to reframe that.
Like, don't talk that way about my son.
Yes.
Love that guy. Don't say bad things about him.
Notice this for yourself. If you would never tolerate the way you talk to yourself, if someone said the same thing about your best friend and you would want to smack them, don't talk to yourself that way. That's a really important one. And how does this all relate to goals? So this is how we keep our inner flame tended. When you have more of a conversation and a relationship with that visionary practice, and you're taking care of your energy in these other ways, that is putting one step in front of the other and actually actively working towards that next lantern. And you're doing so within the context of being a person who is well-rested, who is thoughtful and caring, who has the relationships and the support and the structures in their life to make that hike up the mountain to that next place. So we go into a lot more depth in our book about kind of what that progress looks like. You saw it on the last slide. We have a formula called the progress formula, but none of that stuff matters until this triangle is in place in your life?
You are the source of your life. You can't build something without taking care of the source. And it's been said in many ways, fill your own cup, secure your own oxygen mask first, all these ways. But like Erin said, it's one thing to know it, and it's another thing to do it. So hopefully this idea of discovering a visionary practice that brings together where you want to go with what today you needs, increasing the amount of fuel that you have to actually put into the fire through basically elevating many of the things you're already doing into a more intentional place. And starting with just that single impingement on your consciousness. There's something that's, diminishing the oxygen flow.
Don't watch the news before bed, maybe.
Right? It might even be just
scroll, put your phone away. You don't need to know what's happening on social media right before you close your eyes for the night.
Right?
That's mine.
So those two kind of go together, right? Where you're giving yourself more oxygen, but it also gives you better sustaining rituals right along with it. And the tending triad it's a practice. It's something to check in with regularly. How are you doing across these different things? If you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling in a rut, check in. How inspired is your work? How much do you believe in where you're going? These are daily touch points that will help you shift that sense of the brightness of the inner flame.
So that is really the bulk of what we wanted to share with you today. And if this sort of way of thinking about it resonates with you, you can pre-order our upcoming book. It's called Superabound, Live the Life the Universe is Dreaming for You. We have a link here, superabound.com/book, where we've got some extra little bonus goodies for all of you, including a class that breaks down the tending triad so that you actually can walk through a visionary practice and see a little bit more about what that looks like. It has been such an honor to be with you. Nick, thank you so much for having us today.
Mark, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Absolutely. And where can people go to find you? I assume, are you both on LinkedIn? If people have questions, because I'm sure people will, what's the easiest way to reach out to you?
Depends on your favorite platform. We are on LinkedIn.
Okay.
The business is Superabound Coaching. And you can also just search our names, Steve Haase, Haase, and Erin Aquin, Aquin.
Perfect. All right. And I will make sure to link all that for everyone listening. I will make sure to link the book so you can check it out. And if you do have questions or want to reach out, I'll make sure to point you in the right direction. Thank you both for joining. This was fantastic.